So he measures the Earth's frequency, and on that day, it was 7.83 hertz, I believe, something like this. So he takes that note and basically, or whoever does this, right, and kind of coordinates that to, all right, well, if this was on a piano, what would middle A be? And middle A in this realm of things is 432. And so people tend to think that 432 hertz is like coming back home to our Earth. It's like home. It's really the natural frequency of the Earth. Because then Beethoven.
What is up, conscious monkeys? I almost had a little bit of a delay there as we're getting started, but we're going to push through it. Welcome to another episode of Traveling to Consciousness. As always, I am your host, Clayton. Today's guest is a multi-instrumentalist starting at a very young age. He is now a DJ and a producer, and you might be curious as to what a DJ is doing on this show. But the hint of why he is on this show is in the name of his record label, which is called High Vibe Records. So get ready for this podcast where we're going to try to mix the musical vibrations with the etheric vibrations. So conscious monkeys, welcome to the show, Equanimous. Equanimous, thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And hey, everybody, it's an honor to be here.
I'm grateful you're here, and to give people a little bit of a, how should we phrase this, a background on how this came to be, how this came to fruition. I was reading about how music and the words within music get, seep into our subconscious mind with the rhythm, the pattern, the words. And it really helped me to take a look at the music I was listening to. And it's safe to say that a lot of the words that were being said were not of the highest vibration that I was looking for. And it led me to kind of start compiling what I called like a manifestation playlist, where it was things or songs that were like more upbeat, more high vibes, if you will. And it's funny because after like two or three of them, after putting in about 4 or 5 audio or songs, Spotify starts recommending songs to you. And probably they recommend about 5 at a time, and I think 3 or 4 of them were always by this guy named Equanimous. And so his playlist is just loaded with all these things by Equanimous, and it hit me like I need to start kind of branching out, finding more people in like the spirituality community. And it hit me, it was like, you should probably start looking into some musicians or DJs or producers who are connected to this idea of spirituality and bring them on the show. And so here we are.
I love it. Yeah, and Spotify actually recently, like within the last year and a half, created their own genre called high vibe, which
Oh.
I would assume is based on our label. I don't know, but the reason why I know this is because if you ever see people, they'll like post their pie charts on social media and like their Spotify pie charts of like who they listen to and the genres, and it's just automatic. And so it'll say what your like top listened genres are. And the ones who have the ones who listen to me and other artists in my label have their top genre as high vibe. So I would assume that there's some connection there. I don't know for certain,
That's really
but for sure it's
fascinating.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's dope too. I mean, I'm guessing the label came out before Spotify made this switch.
Oh yeah, the label we started in 2017, but we really didn't get going like like legitimately until 2020 during the pandemic. And yeah, I would, I mean, before they had, there was this genre called like shamanic something, and they don't really have that anymore. So I think what they did is they might have just switched it. I don't know. I really don't know is the truth. It's just my assumptions.
Well, to wrap up on the Spotify thing, it is a good timing for it because when this podcast is going to be releasing, will probably be right around when you see all those Spotify memes kind of popping
Right.
up, where Spotify's
Right.
telling you what music you were listening to.
Right.
So that's a little bit of nice divine intervention right there.
Yeah. Fun fact about those is people think that it's for the whole year, but it's actually just from January till the end of October. So
Oh.
it's only 10 months. So it's artists will post, oh, I got 50 million streams this year, but they really got 50 million streams in 10 months.
Oh,
Not that
so
it
they don't
matters
even
that
do
much,
they
but
not but do they not count December and November?
not for those graphics. They do for everything else, but because
Okay.
those graphics I think come out in December,
Yes.
and
Somewhere
so
around there.
right, and so they get the data for up until the end of October. To my knowledge, this is to my knowledge.
Okay. So I can't just sit there and just spam listen to Equanimous right now and it's not gonna it's not gonna
I
help
don't
out
think
the
I don't think
help out the
it'll,
numbers.
no. If you wanna alter how your personal graphic looks, I don't. I think it's too late for that.
We've already passed the deadline.
Yeah,
That's super cool, man. But it was dope. I was looking up your Wikipedia. I guess that's kind of like a pseudo Wikipedia, but you
I have a
it seems like
Wikipedia.
it
I
was
didn't even know that.
I don't know if it's actually Wikipedia per se, but it was
Right,
like this
but it's like something
off-brand
like this.
wiki. Yeah.
Right, that's
But
great. I didn't even know
uh,
that.
I thought it was great too. I was like, "Oh, this is helping me out as a
Yeah,
podcaster."
right.
But it was cool. So I guess I mean, everything on this could be fake, so who knows? But I'm gonna act
Right.
as if it's real, and you tell
Yeah.
me if it's fake. But the one thing that it was saying is that you were a multi-instrumentalist, that it seems like you were playing the drums. Let me see if I remember the piano, saxophone, and something else before middle school. So is that true or is that
That's
is
all
that a
true.
little
Yeah, I grew up, I was a baby, like a YouTube baby before there was YouTube. So there's videos of me as like a 2-year old playing drum sets and,
hell yeah.
like lots of different instruments. Definitely started on the drums, self-taught, moved over to piano for a little bit, took lessons for probably like 6 months when I was a kid. Wasn't the biggest fan, did not know, couldn't read music. I still can't read music. I don't even know how to do that. Um, and then, yeah, just kind of like self-taught myself. And then when I was like probably 12, I learned, I started taking guitar lessons, and I did guitar lessons on and off. Cause I didn't have to read music when I was playing guitar. And then, yeah, I've just, I took sax lessons for a little bit too. I can play, I would say I can very proficiently play the piano and the drums. I'd probably give myself like, you know, in the nines for piano and drums. For guitars, probably like in the eights. Um,
Out of 10.
same with bass. Yeah, out of 10. Yeah, same with bass. And then saxophone like a 4 or 5. And I can play
Okay.
other. I can play like pretty much any instrument I pick up. The flute's hard, and the violin's hard, but the other ones I can. I've like played a clarinet before, and it's just like it feels to me like when you understand the language of music and instruments, as long as your like fingers and your mouth or whatever you're using can do the things, it's kind of all the same for the most part. It's just
That's
about like practice. And so for me, I'm a drummer, so that those are my the two most popular percussive instruments are the piano, which is a percussion instrument, and the drums. And I know the piano has strings, but it's still a percussion instrument because it's percussive. um, so that's kind of like my go-to's right now is piano and drums.
that's pretty cool. And I would love to break down this language of music you're talking about,
Yeah.
because I know an interesting parallel to your story is that whenever COVID hit for me, I knew there was something that I should put my energy into. And so I tried to teach myself the guitar. I did that for a couple of months and then it fell off. But then I jumped into DJing for like house music and all that.
Nice.
Dude, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot
Yeah.
of fun.
What's your DJ name?
Uh, it was more pleased, but I wasn't crazy about it, and I was kinda like, "Ah, this doesn't feel right." So, if
Right.
I ever get back into it, it'll probably just be Clayton. It'll probably just be my name.
Nice. DJ
Yeah, so
Consciousness.
DJ Co oh, damn, you heard it here first. Is High Vibe Records, signing people?
Yeah, but we do. I mean, we actually sign songs. So we don't
Okay.
sign artists, we sign songs. So that's kind of our model.
Well, so then in that, I guess we're kind of veering off what I was originally gonna
Yeah,
ask,
yeah.
but
No,
but
it's
in
okay.
that in that frame, do you kind of like look at certain artists that you're looking to bring on, and then would you almost, I don't want to say commission a song, but would you try to
Mhm.
like work with them to produce a song that's in the, let's say, vibration, the melody, the tone that High Vibes is looking for?
Um, Sometimes with remixes, like we'll pair certain artists that have worked with us before. We'll say like, hey, like for example, when we release an artist track, they'll be like, hey, who would be good for a remix for this? And so we'll
Mhm.
send a couple different options and like, connect the people, that kind of thing. which will like create a vibe, you know. But for the most part, that type of production where I'm like going for a vibe and I pair artists to work together, I unless it's a remix, I typically just do for my own music. Like I'll work with multiple people. Um, but yeah, for the most part, like I'm pretty relaxed about it. Like I would say Equanimous, me being Equanimous is kind of like my general work. And then I worked really hard to set up High Vibe Records for a couple years. But at this point, everything's delegated. Like I'm not even the label manager. We have a wonderful woman, Corey, and she is the label manager. And so she takes care of everything. She's on salary, all that stuff. And I kind of just oversee it and I curate it. So I choose which songs we accept and which songs we don't. And the mostly everything else she does and she runs.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So if we take a step back, because I do want to keep
Yes.
this in kind of like the
Yeah, sorry,
interesting the
keep us. I
language.
know there's
It's
a lot
okay.
of excitement here and a lot for us to
I
talk
know,
about. So
and we'll get to it all. And
yeah,
and
feel free to
if you
guide us.
I'm going to do the best I can. But at the
Great.
same point, if you feel like going down a rabbit hole and you want to dive in on something,
I'll
the
let you
floor
know.
is yours. So take care of it. Yeah.
I love it.
No wrong answers.
I love that.
Well, so getting back to the music, the language of music, I found
Yeah.
this to be a very interesting idea because I remember like exploring guitar and then understanding the idea of chords and how a chord is like you essentially playing multiple notes at the same time. And then I looked into the piano because they were saying that if you're able to understand the piano, then there's almost like a section of the piano that applies to every single instrument. And I found that really kind of bizarre or like
I would
crazy in
agree.
effect. So
I would
what
agree.
like in the terms of music language, like what does that really mean?
I mean, just think about it like this: a guitar is, or any instrument rather, is just like it's a bunch of matter. I'm going to go a little deep here for a second, but it's
Do
a
it.
bunch of matter and just like energy in a condensed form that when a human does something to that form, it produces sonic vibrations and waves that sound like how they sound in our ears. And so music theory and music itself is the same. It doesn't like if you play a C major scale on a piano and a C major scale on guitar, the only thing that's different is what it sounds like. You know what I mean? They're going to have the same notes. And
Mm.
so, for example, you can actually, like, if I really wanted to, I could record every note of the guitar, put it into every key on a MIDI keyboard, and play the guitar sound with the piano. And you can
Mm.
actually do that the other way too. You can get a MIDI guitar that isn't a real guitar, but it just like is playing a guitar and put piano sounds in that guitar and play as if you're playing a guitar, like strumming the piano. It wouldn't sound as good, but you can do all those things. So if you can understand, and the reason why the piano is easy is because it's so accessible. I mean, you can play the piano on your computer keyboard. People do it all the time. Sometimes when I'm on a plane and I like think of a dope beat, I'll literally do the beat on my laptop keyboard. And so, like, if you can understand that, you can apply that to other instruments.
Okay. Because it's almost changing your perspective, changing your vision of the world, your consciousness maybe even of the world to view it in this form of what vibration does each note represent or feel like inside your body whenever you play it, and then trying to mash that with maybe a certain energy or feeling that you're trying to produce. Would
Yeah,
that be a
and that,
fair?
yeah, I mean that's one view. Like I'd say that's accurate, but there's also so many different ways to look at it. I mean, you know, people can tie a certain note or frequency with a feeling like that. you know, they could be listening to the car on the radio and someone screams and then they feel frightened and then they associate that one sound with a frightening, there's so that's like what, or maybe that doesn't exist. I don't know. There's so many ways to look at this kind of thing. And it goes all the way back to, like, if you were to trace where what you just brought up kind of like, I would say the biggest like debate amongst, not debate, to me, the most interesting topic around what you're talking about here is the discussion of 432 and Schumann resonance. Are you aware of this at all?
I've seen things about the frequency 432. I've heard of the Schumann resonance, which is the resonance of the planet, but that's
It
kind of
was
my
the
scope.
resonance of the planet. So I'm
I
just
go in
gonna,
on this.
I'm
Go
yeah,
on
I'm
this.
gonna
Oh
go in
yeah.
real quick because I feel like talking about this provides a greater and deeper conscious awareness that will help um, support whatever one's given viewpoint is on this topic of harmonics through sound vibration. So this dude Schumann basically was like, I'm going to measure the Earth's frequency, like the sonic frequency, right? So he has this device called a Schumann generator. I actually have one. They try to make them really they're kind of taboo in the medical community because you can produce any frequency with them. So like
Mm.
you can produce the frequency of like a disease, which can either affect someone to potentially be of harm, or I actually know some scientists that are not allowed to speak publicly because of um, medical and government intervention, but they have cured diseases like AIDS and cancer with just purely sound.
I've seen that.
um,
I've seen that
yeah,
before.
and so that's actually not legal. Um, the government made it very clear to make that not be legal for obvious reasons, because of course the pharmaceutical companies would lose a ton of money if that was ever public. Um,
We can go down that
but
rabbit hole in a
yeah,
bit.
we'll go down. Right, right. But so anyways, so he measures the Earth's frequency, and on that day, it was 7.83 hertz, I believe, something like this. And so he takes that note and basically, or whoever does this, right, and kind of coordinates that to, all right, well, if this was on a piano, what would middle A be? And middle A in this realm of things is 432. And so people tend to think that 432 hertz is like coming back home to our Earth. It's like home. It's really the natural frequency of the Earth, because then Beethoven and you know, composers at that time, including the Nazi Germany movement, changed things to 441, which was a different frequency. Now, a lot of people will say that they did this to try to produce mind control, because that's what like pianos and instruments started to be tuned in. Um, I don't know if that's true. My honest thought is that someone, when they were deciding this, they remeasured the Earth and it was higher than 7.83, and they just never publicly talked about it. That's my own theory. I have no idea if that's true or not. No proof to back that up. But what I can say is that they have measured the Earth since, and what has been discovered is that it changes and the frequency can fluctuate, and over time it has actually gone higher. So for those people that say, oh, it has to be in 432 because that's the frequency of the Earth, it was the frequency of the Earth on a certain day. But at least to my knowledge and the research that I've done, it's changing all the time. So it's very challenging to, in my opinion, to be like, oh, 528 is like the love frequency, right? Because that would be in relation to where our planet is vibrating. Unless maybe it
Mm.
is. I don't know for sure. It's just an interesting topic that I'm certainly curious about. I've had these conversations before, and what I take away from it is like we're all relatively, you know, we only know a very, very, very small portion, it seems, of these things. So to get caught up in one frequency versus another, I would argue that the best and most potent way to choose these type of sounds is to actually just feel it yourself and make the best judgment call that you can.
I'm totally on board with that. I think that there's a lot to be said for the idea of feeling into what energy, what people, what ideas resonate with you, and take those if those are the frequencies that you want to align more with. Back where you were talking about the 432, you were saying to what did you say with instruments? You said to tune them into a certain frequency as opposed
Right.
to
So
441.
a piano is, unless it's a 432 piano or a different specific frequency tuned piano, high percentage of pianos, guitars, trumpets, saxophones, every single instrument is in 440.1, 441, whatever it
They're
is.
441. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is interesting because I know whenever I bought my guitar, and I don't know where my audience lays on how musically adept they are because we've never talked about it before. So
Right.
just as like a step back, I had whenever I was learning guitar, I had one of those little like things that you would clip on to the top of it so that
Yeah.
whenever you
Yeah.
would
Tuner.
strum a certain chord, yeah, a tuner. So when you
Yeah. Yeah.
strum a certain chord, it would say, how you need to spin the string so that it becomes either more in tune or like less in tune.
Right. And
So
that's in relation to it being tuned at 441. If it was tuned at 44, if it was tuned at 432, an A, the A note, middle A, instead of being 441 hertz, would be 432. And so your tuner, if it was in 432, which there are some tuners that do this, it would actually have you go lower than normal.
okay. So that's interesting, right? So there's an A. I think the remind me if the notes are A, B, C, D, E, F. Like that's just what the notes are, and then major and minors
G. Yeah,
and G.
G. Yeah.
Okay. So then you're saying that there's a letter note. There's a note that
Mhm.
exists on all 432 frequencies and then all 441 frequencies.
Um, no. No, what I'm saying is the frequencies exist outside of the notes. And but the notes are all relative to each other, right? They're like whole step, half step. For example, like if I go duh, right? If that's an A, which I don't think it is, but if it is duh, then a B would be duh. But the difference between A and B, no matter what, if it's in 432 or 441, will always be the same. So it's like assigning a note to a frequency, right? And so if
Gotcha.
you assign an A to 432, then you would tune the rest of the instrument relative to A being the 432, as opposed to if it was 441, you tune it relative to the A being 441.
Okay, we're on the same page. So A is like the base note. So that's going to be what you're tuning it to. So when we say you're
No,
tuning
no,
it to
A is just a note. There is no bass note. The bass is whatever the
okay.
frequency is, right? So like, for example, in a piano, you would argue that C is the bass note because it's typically the lowest note on most pianos. Or I guess actually, I don't know if that's actually true. It might be a B or a B flat, but or an A. But the point is that middle C is like a more traditional thing, right? It's like us humans have given the weight to the frequency by like, it's like, think about it this way. It's like the frequencies are different pieces of paper and the notes are like the drawings. This is a terrible analogy. I'm going to stop the analogy right now. It wasn't going where I wanted to go. But I think you get what I'm saying. I think you get what I'm saying.
I think so.
I hope you get what I'm saying.
Is
Yeah.
it is it well, I'm going to keep asking questions till I figure it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Sure. Ask
well,
questions. Yeah. Yeah.
let's do
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
then is it so because right so different frequencies, all these notes are at different frequencies, right? Like you were saying, A if it's and then B is and then C is
Yeah. They are
those are all
different
different
frequencies.
frequencies, right?
Correct.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
then all of those have to be whenever you say that they're all tuned to a certain
Yeah.
frequency, right? They're tuned to 431
This,
or they're tuned to
right.
441.
Right.
How does
And
that
when you say that, right. So in like music jargon, that would be meaning it is tuned to A being whatever note you are talking about.
okay? And so then I don't know what the correlation between like a half step or like a full step is in frequencies terms, but I assume that there's a frequency gap between a half step and a full step that then you
Yeah.
apply.
And you do know
Okay.
it. You know it in your system, and I can show you right now. Okay. If
Okay.
I said duh, duh, and I told you that's a whole step, the next whole step would be duh, duh.
Duh.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
half step would be da 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 da. Do you see how it's less? So
Yeah,
so half step, so whole step da da, half step da da. Do you hear? It's right in the middle. You hear that?
for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think where
Whole
I was
step
trying
is
to
half step.
the next step I was going the next step pun
Right.
intended
Nice. Yeah.
the next step that I was going to go with that was that there's a numerical equivalence for that frequency based on, let me see here, how am I trying to
Yeah.
articulate
Yeah.
this? Yeah,
Yes.
there's
I know what
another
you're talking about. And
frequency for it. Okay.
yes is the answer. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, if you look up like 432 tuning chart, it'll show you all the frequencies that of each note. Yeah, of each note. Same with 441. You can see what each note is, and that's how you get to the Schumann resonance. Is that in 432 the bass note is the 7.83.
The bass note is 7.83. So that was going to be my next question. Is you're saying though
Yeah.
that 431 is the four,
Yeah. Sorry.
431 is the frequency. I
432.
432. So maybe
Yeah.
I'm internalizing this wrong, but you're saying 432 and then 7.83, I believe. And then so the one's the Schumann resonance, but then what is 432?
So okay, if so 7.83 is inaudible to the human ear. In fact, there are no speakers on the planet that can play 7 hertz.
It's like
The
below 20 hertz or something.
20, to my knowledge, right now, the like deepest subs can go to 20. I think some can even go lower, but you just don't hear it. You feel it.
Okay.
So like you could feel it theoretically on like your body if you had like a sub pack on or something. I work with this company called Soundbed. You can like lie on the bed and it vibrates. It's super cool.
That's
So
cool.
if 7.3 is the lowest note that you can't hear and you keep going up the scale,
Mm,
eventually when you get to the middle A, it will be 432.
I got
If
you.
your low note is 7.3. If 441 is your middle A and you were to go down, your low note would not be 7.83. It would be a little higher.
I got you
Does that
because
make sense?
yeah, because the way that like the notes essentially work is that are cyclic. They cycle through what note that they're at. So you would just, once you go through the entire chart, you would just come to the next one, right?
Right.
Like it's just kind of, and I
Well,
think
no. So no, because 432, for example, does not exist on a 441 scale. It's not a right. It's like
right. Right.
right.
So here's an example. I think I have a good universal tuning. So
Great.
the way that it has it mapped out is that it's a 432 hertz. So it's
Mm-hmm.
saying 432 hertz is A. And then
Right.
if you go to A major, it's 459. If you go to B, it's 486.
Sure.
And then it wraps around to C at 504. Then C sharp is 540, D 576. And it kind of goes
Right.
all the way back down. And eventually it comes back to A at 864. So then once you go back
Right.
to B, it cycles back to C. And so there's almost this like cyclic nature that kind of happens throughout the keys.
Correct. And that's would be the 432 tuning, and 441, of course, would be different. But yes.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Now that we got that out of the way, music theory is
Yeah.
honestly crazy.
Yeah.
um, now that we got that out of the way, this comes back then now to what you were saying about 432, it being changed to 441, and how this is now. Were you saying that it's a different frequency that's not
Yeah.
in
So all
alignment with the
music,
Schumann?
it's not in alignment with the Schumann resonance, but it doesn't mean it's not in alignment.
Gotcha.
So 441, all music since Nazi Germany basically has been in 441 since pianos were invented. Um,
Mm,
to my knowledge, there might have been some 432 pianos back in the day. I don't know. But and that's all the music we hear now is 441 for the most part. I mean, you'll get some people who are really into this stuff and they'll do like solfeggio frequencies and different things like 528. And, there's some really cool artists actually that mess around with different frequencies and you can like feel it. And some of it's really, really cool. And I've actually thought of doing some of that stuff more, but the problem is that it's just so very difficult to like mix into a DJ set or to like get someone to remix it or to play guitar. It's not as convenient.
right, because it's in a completely different frequency. So it would almost be just such a shift in your
Right.
awareness that
Like
it
if I had
wouldn't
a
flow.
guitar and I tuned my guitar to 432 and I went over to my piano player friend's house and I was like, hey, let's jam. He wouldn't be able to. because the piano is going to be
Right.
in 441.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, and I guess there's not really any reason behind this shift from 432 to 441. Was that just kind
Well,
of
there's some arguments. I mean, like I said, mine is that I just think they remeasured the earth then when they were trying to make new instruments. That's my belief. But there's another very popular belief that it was a way for the Germans to mind control humans
mm,
and get them to basically be submissive to the, agenda in Nazi Germany.
that's interesting because if we're going down the conspiracy thread, I know that there's thoughts about
Sure.
and I guess this comes back to frequencies as well, where with 5G they're saying that they actually have the ability to manipulate the frequencies that are going throughout the air. Now, although I have a past with electrical engineering, I don't know about 5G well enough to make a comment on it, but it is fascinating that there is actually still a parallel today with at the let's say at the very least there's that fear within us that people are able to manipulate the sound frequencies or the radio wave frequencies to have an impact on our human body.
Yeah, and they can do that without humans knowing.
That's the craziest part.
And yeah, I think with all these theories, like um it depends on like people are going to make mistakes no matter what, most likely, right? So it's just like, do you believe that the people at the top are inherently evil, or do you believe that they're inherently good? And um I'm sure there's a mix of both. I'm sure there's people who are evil who accidentally do things that make things good, and I'm sure that there's people that are good that are not realizing that they're doing evil things, and
Yeah.
so you know it's hard to know. But what I can say is, like, we're all still alive. The only thing that, for me, the only thing that um, is a little bit worrisome is I did see that the death rate is going up in the world, um, at a very high rate. So that's something that,
Is that like
you
the
know,
age at which people die?
no,
Like,
the amount of deaths. There are more deaths happening per day than normal. Um,
oh, we
and,
do have most people on earth though, right? So does that take it into account? Is there like an account for the fact that there are more people alive today than have ever been on planet Earth,
it's
or
the
hypothetically?
data that I saw was that, um, per capita. So it was
Okay,
like we're having the most deaths per people on Earth right now.
gotcha.
And you could argue that, there's the conspiracy theorists and people that'll say it's because of, I don't know, the vaccines. You'll have people that'll say it's because of 5G. You'll have people that'll say, um, that it's just honestly poor diet and it's glyphosate in the air. You know, Lots of different theories. Could be a combination of all those things. I'm not necessarily saying I agree with any of those things or all of them or none of them. I don't know, but I will say that, like, these are some things that I know people are saying.
Oh, for sure. I personally think that it comes back to us being out of tune with what something you mentioned earlier, which is just
Yeah.
our emotional state, our internal state of like what are we feeling?
Right.
Like does this feel right? Does this sound feel right? Does this music feel right to me? Does
Yeah.
this food resonate with my body as something I should continue to eat? Are there, I mean, nutrients in the soil? Like the nutrients in
Right.
American food is trash. Like it's crazy. Like that's actually factual. I don't think there's any debate about that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I wanted to comment on that. First of all, I do agree with you that, it is very important to tune in and be in harmony with your emotional guidance system, so that you can be of best alignment. Um, but as far as, like, what you just mentioned with American soil not having, being good, yeah, we're probably not as good as some other countries for sure. But we also do have plenty of organic farms that, I live an all organic lifestyle. meaning I only eat organic food, I only wear organic clothes, and all my bedding is also organic, including all my shampoos, my soaps, everything like that. So I do my best to eliminate any kind of pesticide going in through either ingestion or into my pores, through
Love
my
it.
skin. I travel with my own organic pillowcase as well. So like, you know, um, I mean, I probably take it to an extreme, but the point is that it's possible and anyone can do it as long as you're relatively privileged. It's a weird thing to say, but it's also kind of true since right now the government is subsidizing, um, conventional food as opposed to organic, which of course goes into all industries, unfortunately, at this point.
Right. Right. I mean, I guess at some level we got to figure out like what the best route is for our individual self and figure out what we're able to
Right.
actually do, right? Like maybe you don't get to that extreme where you're at with, having everything organic, but you start little by little. And it,
100%. And I did that too. It wasn't like I just woke up one day and, like I used to eat dairy for years. I would love pizza. Pizza tastes so good. Oh my God. But I haven't had dairy in years. And it's just like there's steps that you take, and I noticed that like I'm noticing a lot of athletes too. I'm a big sports guy. I love basketball. And, there's a couple of people in the league that I'm friends with or friendly with. I would say just through like texting, and so I noticed that like you'll get these people like Marcus Smart, Kyrie Irving, who eat like vegan, right? Which to them is really healthy. I actually eat meat, but to them, vegan, like being vegan, is great. And I'm like, great, be vegan. That's amazing. But if you're gonna like, to me, it's more important to be organic than it is vegan. So like there's steps for people, um it's just like Dwight Howard, an NBA player, on the used to be on the Lakers, went to Burning Man this year, and he is talking about wanting to get more conscious and all these things, yet he's still probably eating junk. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's just a step. And I will give a shout out to Dwight because he's the man and he's wanting to get more into consciousness. We've talked a couple times, and he's a super nice guy. I
I've got a
really
podcast if
really
he wants
like
to
him.
talk.
Yeah, I can see if he's up for it.
But I really think that see, I'm still not completely sold on vegan. I'll be honest, I'm not completely sold on it, but I do
Yeah,
find it so fascinating that athletes at a very high level can
yeah,
operate, in that vegan environment, whatever you want to call it,
right.
whatever motivates that. And part of me wonders if there is some level of our, let's say, like our collective consciousness of humanity rising to a certain level where we are actually being able to get more nutrients from certain plants, or if we're no longer able, because I know throughout my life with my diet it's always changed. Like I've tried carnivore diet, I've tried every diet that's in the book, and it's interesting how I've seen these ebbs and flows in my diet where I can't always eat a certain thing. Like I always drank milk, then I became lactose intolerant, then I was back to milk again. So even in that crazy example, I find that there's probably kind of like the Schumann resonance. Things go
Yeah,
up and down, they oscillate within our own life, even when it comes to diet.
yeah. I hear that. I a little bit disagree, and I'm going to tell you why. Because I
Sure.
don't think that that's the right way to look at it for prime health. I don't think it's the most wise thing to make those kind of evaluations. Oh, I tried being vegan. Oh, I tried eating meat. If while you were vegan, you were eating shitty vegan food that was not organic, that had junk in it, and while you're eating meat, you're eating healthy organic meat that was like properly loved and raised, and you know like those are way too different. Like those factors are so different. There's no control, right? I feel like the only way you can really properly make an accurate statement around that is if your control is the same. Like if you're saying like, okay, I only am eating all organic, I'm going to try it with meat, now I'm going to try without, then you'll get some accurate data there. You know what I mean? But like if in one of the two things you're having cookies, it's going to throw off the whole thing. Or if you
Sure.
eat dairy like once, right? Like some bodies can handle dairy, especially if it's raw dairy or like goat dairy. Um, I used to eat some like raw milk back in the day, you know,
I
and
still do it.
I
I
don't,
do it
I,
today. I do
yeah.
that. Yeah.
So I don't, my system cannot, I do not, my system does not like dairy. Like the
Okay.
way that it feels about dairy, it's like, I do not vibe with it. For me, the only thing I would say worse than that, besides like all the, fake colorings and high fructose corn syrup and all that stuff, which I don't even put in the league because that shouldn't even be a food.
Sure.
Um,
It should not be it should
is
not even be
right,
classified as a food.
right,
For
exactly.
sure. Yeah.
Is pork. And pork I have a moral issue with because when I tune into the pig, I do feel like they are experiencing fear when they die. And like a conscious fear and a conscious pain. A cow or like a deer or another animal like that, I feel like has this like universal peace within God and this sense of awareness that like they are going to be killed and eaten. As opposed to a pig, I feel like a pig's like, no, 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 don't do this. And so for me, I can't eat a pig. It's very hard for me to even be around cooked. Like I don't allow pig in my house or anything like being cooked like that because when I tune into it, all I feel is like energetic fear inside of an organ. And I just don't want to eat that, nor do I feel comfortable supporting that in any way. And that's my belief. I don't have any proof to back that up. It's
Sure.
just my own belief.
Well, I think there's two things here that you pointed out that are super important to hit on. And the number one thing is you're absolutely right about the control aspect of not knowing, let's say, how much love was put into growing this cabbage or into
Right.
this lettuce or into these animals for that matter. And I am completely on board that that has some form of vibration, some form of connection with how much nutrients that body, that animal or plant body can take in, and then subsequently gets transferred onto you as you're eating it. Because I mean, even if I just show myself love, I know my body, my muscles like respond in a
Yeah.
much proactive and healthy pattern. It's tremendous, right?
Yeah.
And then what was the other thing you touched on? Oh, the other thing you touched on is this idea of what was it? It was like the idea of whether or not trying vegan. I guess I still feel though that for some people it might work better than others. Like if
Of
you're
course, all
used to
bodies
being
are
in a certain,
different.
yeah, yeah. So
Like
I feel
women can take dairy a lot better than men, in my experience,
really,
and
I haven't
soy,
seen that
and
yet.
soy. Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
and
soy
soy.
makes sense because soy like increases estrogen,
Estrogen
right?
levels. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So that is always an interesting thing. But
Yeah.
let's okay, cool. I like where this rabbit hole is going.
Okay.
Let's shift it real quick to
Okay.
your history with spirituality because I do at some point want to take the music and the spirituality and see where they merge in your life. So we've got a good basis of the music.
Yeah.
We're onto the hertz, the frequencies. You've been doing this shit your entire life. What was it like with spirituality? Was it something you grew up with in your household? Did you stumble upon it later in your life? When were you kind
Yeah.
of exposed to this
Definitely
other realm?
felt felt it at an early age, very young. 5 years old. Um, didn't really mentally grasp what was going on, I think, until I was in college. I will say, like, when I was in high school and younger, it was all just kind of like philosophy. And like when I was in college, I kind of like woke up a little bit on a cellular level. Um,
Can you explain that a bit?
and
What does that mean to you?
yeah, just experiencing life from a different inner view.
Okay.
And like feeling my cells and operating from my full system and body rather than just identifying with myself as my mind,
Were you
which I
were you
actually wrote
doing
a
something?
song.
Were you doing something like meditating to get to that feeling?
um, I was hanging out with some actors, and actors, when you're in like acting school, there's a lot of like practice around I was not in acting school. I was just hanging out with some. And there's a lot of practice around like being versus doing and identifying, like being the wit, all that stuff. That in combination with like, you know, I read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. That was very, have you read that book?
I have. I love it.
Yeah.
I think that was the
Yeah.
one that
That,
like switched in my
right.
head and like
Yeah, me
started a
too. I
huge.
wrote a
Yeah.
song called I Am My Mind, a song called I Am My Mind when I was in college. And I put it out just like to my friends, whatever. And then I opened a book Eckhart Tolle, Power Now. The first line in it is, "You are not your mind." And I was like, whoa. And so that, you know, that kind of opened that for me. Definitely like lots of experiences with medicine and different substances have helped, um, you know, kind of like shift and paint my view and my awareness. Definitely, you know, later in life doing a Vipassana 10-day silent meditation. I mean, that was drastic for me, just in terms of like really shifting my home place from my body, from my mind into my body, you know, and now I like, I think I probably think as much as the next person, but I don't, it's different because I'm not hanging out in my mind as much. So I'm not like, there's really like, you know, I know what it's like to have a strong voice in your head. I did when I grew up. I had OCD, all that stuff. Um, Going from that to now having, you know, a pretty empty and blank space up there in the head. And then when there is a voice that comes in, it's like, it feels like it's just like one kind of little voice or one voice that's, you know, taking up a little um, occupancy of the space. So there's been a lot of things in my journey. You know, I've come in and out, different experiences, but I would say that like the first time where I ever identified, I guess, as a spiritual being was probably like, you know, as I was coming out of college and um, experimenting with different substances and philosophies and, you know, learning from different teachers and people and just being open.
You said medicines, and where my mind went to
Yeah.
was like plant medicine. Is that did
Yeah.
you do some stuff with like psilocybin or something where you were in
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a
Yeah. Oh,
therapeutic
yeah.
setting?
Not in a I mean, therapeutic setting, yes, in that I was like in nature. But yeah, I've probably, I mean, I've
Okay,
taken quite
fair.
a bit of medicines. Yeah, I used to do a lot more than I do now. But yeah, you know, I've quote unquote tripped or taken some type of medicine, whether it's mushrooms or LSD or MDMA or, you know, iboga or ayahuasca or San Pedro or any of those. You know, I've probably DMT, I've even salvia. I've probably like, you know, partaken in multiples of hundreds times.
Do you feel like and I guess maybe some of these times, did you ever go into it with like the intention that you were doing it, or was it kind of more just like, I'm going to do this to trip? You know what I mean? Like, was there,
No, oh no, no. I'd say like 99 out of 100 times there's an intention.
okay. So you were kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
conscious, you were very conscious whenever you were doing this as to like, were you trying to get stuff out of it, or was it just like for
Well,
fun in
when I
some
was
situation?
younger in college, it was a little bit more to party. I mean, I would
Sure.
still do it out in nature, but it was more to like have fun and take mushrooms with their friends, you know, or like you
Yeah.
take some Molly and go to a show. Um, Now it's different. When I do a medicine, it's different. I also do way less. Like when I was in college, I would like do a full dose like every time. You know, I've never really done like, I mean, I've done a couple hero doses, but never like huge intentional hero doses. I don't think, to my knowledge. Now, if I take some medicines, it's usually in the form of a microdose.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's just so fascinating how it just like slightly like almost lifts this veil of reality
Oh
whenever
yeah.
you take it in a
Do you
small quantity.
partake? Do you
Yeah.
partake in microdosing at all? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my history, I was very, what would it have been? College? I don't think I did psychedelics until I got into college
Where'd
and
you go to college?
Central Florida down
Oh,
in
cool.
Orlando.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be
That
there. I'll actually be there on Thursday.
oh yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah,
You're
playing
performing?
Zen Awakening. Yeah, I'm playing Zen
Oh,
Awakening Festival there.
oh,
Yeah.
okay. Dude, there's so many festivals down in like that Florida area, like Okeechobee
Yeah.
Fest and yeah, that's cool.
Mhm.
I got a couple buddies I got one buddy in particular who like wants to go to Okeechobee Fest so bad. I'm like, dude, we'll make it happen eventually.
Yeah.
Not to get off topic. Yeah,
That's all good.
I did. What did I do? I did some in college. I think like probably mushrooms and LSD was like the craziest. And then whenever I got to San Diego, I lived in San Diego for 4 years. That was
Okay.
kind of whenever I experienced with or messed around with like ecstasy or MDMA. And that was like just turning your oxytocin levels on to like the highest degree. I found that to be such like a bonding chemical. It was fascinating in my mind. And what kind of I guess not freaked me out, but like puzzles me is like how people are able to drink alcohol and take psychedelics at the same time. I'm not sure if you've ever kind of done that yourself.
Well, I don't really drink alcohol. So, I mean, I used
Okay.
to when I was in college, I like, drank, but, you know, if I drink alcohol, it's either like maybe a glass of wine, like once every 2 months with my girlfriend, out to dinner or something, like very
Right.
rarely. Or, um, there have been a couple times recently where like I've been in settings where, typically when I go out or I'm like around my friends or I'm playing an event, typically the focus is not alcohol. It's just not like people, if they're going to do substances, that's not what they're doing. And so I'm not around it very much. But there have been some times when I've like, networked with people or I've gone to see, older friends, um, and, been at like a show with someone or whatever, where I would have a beer, like an organic IPA or something.
Organic.
Um,
It's got to be
yeah,
organic.
I try to, yeah, I try to. Or or there have been a couple times where like I have done some MDMA in like settings, where you know having one drink is okay, but typically like definitely not more than two. For me, I'm not a big drinker. It's just really not my thing.
I gotcha. Yeah, that was another thing. I used to college was crazy. I went through all the,
Yeah, Central
crazy
Florida. I
college.
mean,
Yeah.
even I know that.
Yeah, that left a mark.
Right.
That's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
But I definitely went through those phases, and I find myself now like out of it where I'm kind of like you. I probably drink a little bit more frequency, like maybe like 2 or 3 like drinks a week, but I would do like whiskey and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
I'm at like maybe one a month, maybe one drink a month.
I don't see anything wrong
No
with it if you're
judgment.
doing it. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
No,
Oh, for
no
sure.
judgment. No judgment. As long as you're not like getting hammered and freaking destroying your life for people, then
Yeah, who knows?
there's certain
Maybe some people need to do that. I don't know.
right, and there's certain health benefits. Alcohol, believe it or not, is very cleansing.
Dude, this is
And it can
well,
help your immune system.
I
So
used to be around where you were, where I would only do like once every other month. And I read something
yeah,
that people who live the longest in life commonly report. I don't think it was very scientific, but commonly report that they drink once a day. And I was like, there might be something
wow.
to this. Yeah,
No, I
people live to be
definitely think
100.
that. Well, yeah. So think about it. I mean, there's different, obviously, like different things, right? Like tequila, certain tequilas can be good for your immune system. Vodka can be good for your digestive system, which I'm not sure is true, but it's what I heard. I think. Different things do different things, right? Like IPA, there is extremely fermented. It's there's a lot of probiotics in there. I know that's like weird, because really like if you're mixing it with unhealthy sugars and syrups and all this stuff, that's the really bad part about it.
Mm.
And it can affect your judgment and it's dangerous. You don't want to drive it and all these things. So there's definitely cons, but also if you do it in a healthy way, I don't think it's that. And I think it could be good for you.
Well, I would need to look this up, but I could have sworn like maybe like the 1600s or 1700s, they would more commonly drink beer than water because the water was so tainted and so bad that drinking beer was actually a healthier alternative. I might want to fact check myself on that, but
Yeah, I've actually heard that too. I don't know if I believe it, just because beer is still dehydrating to my
right.
knowledge. But I mean, there is water in beer, so maybe not. Maybe like certain beers is good. I don't know.
While I'm searching that, I was curious
Yeah.
because I feel like I get into this weird space with like words like GMO and organic and all natural
Hmm.
where everyone makes up their own like little definition of it. So I
Yeah.
was curious to you, what when you're saying organic, what do you mean by like
I
something's
mean,
organic?
organic, zero pesticides. So for
Okay.
me, non GMO doesn't make a difference because I'm not going to eat GMO food. So if it says non-GMO, it doesn't matter because it needs to say organic for me to eat it.
Mm.
Non-GMO just means it's not made in a lab. Honestly, I would rather eat GMO food than food that's grown out of the ground with pesticides on it. So for me, the non-GMO thing literally means nothing.
Okay.
All natural also literally means nothing because MSG can be listed as natural flavors legally.
Really?
Yes. So I don't care. Like that doesn't make any difference to me. I need to see organic ingredients. Now, there are some brands of food that I'll eat that are not organic, but all the ingredients on the back, or at least a very high percentage of them, will be organic.
Mm.
So for me, I just try to eliminate glyphosate and eliminate different pesticides. They're obviously terrible for you. Um, you know, I've noticed that like a lot of my own also fears and different like uncomfortabilities within my system have also gone away from eliminating these things. And as someone that spends a lot of time in my own inner system, I really am a big um, supporter and um, person or proponent of um, internal awareness. That if you're practicing internal awareness, you'll feel these subtleties, you know.
Oh, for
And so
sure.
for me, it's organic or it's poison.
How does that work whenever you like go out to eat? Is there a way you're able to see if it's all organic or not?
100%. So I call in advance, and of course I'm not perfect. Like there are some times when I do sacrifice, like all, if the quinoa is not organic, but everything else is, I'll still eat it, if I have to. It's not, I don't make it a pain or a nuisance in my life. But yeah, typically what we do is, so I don't go out to eat unless I know the place in advance. I have a personal chef, so she makes all of the food for me. And then if I'm on tour, what I do is I find the best organic spot I can find, and I'll order like 3 meals from there to cover, let's say, my dinner that night, the next day lunch, the next day dinner throughout the airport travel. And I just bring food with me everywhere I go. And
I
then if
love
I
it.
don't have something, if there's no organic food out there, I'll try to get by with like some like powdered shakes or something, or I'll just fast.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean that's I do because I know in my past whenever I've tried to do certain diets, it always gets so difficult. And to think like organic, but I guess it's something you just got to make sure you plan in advance. And you have to
Yeah,
become
and
aware of
and
it.
yeah, and if you're serious about it, I would use fear. I would use fear. Fear is really helpful in this. Um, like I'm legitimately afraid to eat pork. Like my
Hmm.
system would freak out if I had to do that. And I've trained myself to do that so that I don't do it. And it's the same thing
Interesting.
with anything else. You can use fear. Fear is an energy, right? It's like it's an energy, and as long as you're safe with it, you can use it um, to help you not do something. Just in the same way that your system uses fear to not run into a bear. Your body would be like, no, don't do this. Well, you can scare yourself or use fear. Not scare yourself is the wrong way to say it. You can use fear, which to me, when you're using that type of fear, it's actually love disguised as fear, right? It's like a parent being like to a kid, no, don't climb up on that fence. And they make the kid afraid to do it. But that's just an expression of love, of the parent loving the kid.
So I'm on board. This is an interesting idea. I've not thought about this
Yeah,
before. So everything I'm about to say, I'm thinking of it just off the top of my head.
go for it. Yeah, talk it
So
through.
this is interesting though, because I have almost done this on the opposite end of the spectrum where if I feel anxious, if I ever feel anxious or I feel like a lower vibration, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
I try to mentally re-articulate it as, like a challenge. I'm like, okay, once I get past this, it's going to be like leveling up, or I'm feeling anxious in the scenario. So if I'm able to get through it, it's like a leveling up process. So I'm really
So that's yeah.
so,
Sorry.
but yeah, no, it's okay. So I'm really interested in how this gets to fear because something feels right about what you're saying, but where I'm coming from, it feels to me as if I've always because Hmm. Again, I'm stumbling through this, but let
Yeah,
me.
it's okay. In order to do it, I feel like you need to have a deep sense of inner knowing and love and acceptance and safety, right? Because
I'm honored that you loved the very first hour of this episode. If you would like to watch the rest of this episode, please go to travelingtoconsciousness.com and please download the official Traveling to Consciousness app, which is available on the iOS and Google Play Store. Once downloaded, you will have access to all the podcasts, all the articles that I put out, and any other information available. And here's a timestamp of when you left off in the podcast episode. So please go to travelingtoconsciousness.com, download the official app, and I will see you in the sixth dimension.